In Turkey concluded the third Antalya Diplomacy Forum, which was attended by almost 5,000 representatives from some 148 countries. In South Korea, thousands of senior doctors marched on Sunday in the country's capital in support of their fellow trainees who are on strike against the government policies. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society demanded the release of 14 of its workers detained for over 3 weeks by Israel's regime. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela on Sunday, Music and Color marked the first day of registration in the Great Viva Venezuela mission, a program aimed at promoting all art forms nationwide. This revolutionary plan, which foresees 8 main areas with a 30-point action plan, was simultaneously launched with ceremonies at all Bolivar squares of 103 municipalities in the country. Since early in the morning, artists responded to the call of the mission, which has also been defined as a shield of protection against colonizing threats. Culture Minister Ernesto Villegas described Saturday's event as a cultural happening of a great magnitude and dynamism by those who devote their lives to art.
We are motivated. We are happy for this mission that, in my opinion, is very well structured in its 8 fields, and I believe it will bring about a great recovery in terms of cultural work and research.
In Argentina, recent studies show a 21.3% drop in real wages between November 2023 and January of this year. According to a study by the Research and Training Center, losses were greater for public sector wages at almost 25%, while they were 19.3% for the private sector. The reduction values are equivalent to less than half of what they were in November 2015. According to experts, this situation is a clear result of the neoliberal policies of the current government, as happened as well at the beginning of the government of Mauricio Macri. Meanwhile, the figure highlighted the importance of considering the loss of purchasing capacity of people with the lowest wages. In El Salvador on Sunday, over 5 million registered voters are taking part in municipal and parliamentary elections, amid a large abstention. The Supreme Electoral Tribunal said that over 1,595 voting centers were set up for citizens to choose 40 mayors, along with municipal council members and 20 national deputies to the Central American Parliament. On this election day, there were some incidents that delayed the opening of some polling stations, and some streets had to be blocked for security reasons. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines announced an amnesty measure coming into effect for those who turn in weapons and ammunition illegally circulating in the territory. Authorities will hold the initiative until May 31st as part of their campaign against crime and violence in the territory. According to this resolution, those in possession of unlicensed weapons may go to the police, religious centers, or attorneys in order to hand over war materials to the authorities. The legislation also establishes that citizens who return these weapons will not be sanctioned, nor will be investigations opened against them. With the initiative, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines plans to neutralize the recent increase in crimes and murders caused by firearms in the country. In Haiti, hundreds of prisoners escaped on Saturday night and early Sunday morning from the national prison in Port-au-Prince after gangs took control of the detention center. Jimmy Cherizier, aka Baby Q, one of the leaders of the violent gangs, unleashed a war in the capital aiming to overthrow the government. After assaulting the police barrier, the armed gangs took control of the prison, from where strong bursts of fire have been heard. The Colombian mercenaries accused by the magnacide of Jovenel Moise, held in that prison, made a desperate call at the time of the taking. The rector's office of Haiti's State University condemned an attack against one of its campuses carried out by armed groups operating in Port-au-Prince, the country's capital. The board reported that the violent event occurred against the Agronomy and Veterinary College, where a student was wounded by a gunshot on Thursday. The rector's office of the university denounced the plunderings in the student residence and other areas of the college. Police authorities confirmed that the criminals stole valuable items such as solar panels, computers, mattresses, and other essential equipment from the institution. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Turkey, the third Antalya Diplomacy Forum, which was attended by almost 5,000 representatives from some 148 countries, concluded. The third edition of the annual event was held under the theme highlighting diplomacy in times of crisis. During the event, more than 20 heads of state and government from some 100 countries participated in meetings and diplomatic exchanges. In this sense, topics such as global crisis, climate change, immigration, anti-Islamism, trade, wars, and artificial intelligence were discussed. The talks were attended by students, academics, non-governmental organizations, and representatives of the business world. In South Korea, thousands of senior doctors marched on Sunday in the country's capital, Seoul, in support of their fellow trainees who are on strike against the government policies. The march is in response to the latest threat from the executive, which has set a deadline for the strike to end, or else they will face severe sanctions. For almost 2 weeks, medical doctors have been protesting against the government plan to drastically increase the number of med students enrolled at universities. They say the measure will not necessarily solve the deficit of doctors, whereas it may be in detriment of the quality of the training they would receive. The government said that as of this Monday, it could begin to suspend licenses to all 9,000 striking doctors.
The shortage of medical personnel can be solved by changing current policies rather than by increasing the number of doctors. To put it simply, 5 years ago, there was a shortage of 3,000 doctors a year, a total of 15,000 doctors. At that time, Korea's population was larger and there were many more pediatric patients. This phenomenon did not exist even 5 years ago, when the birth rate was twice as high. So the problem is policy, not the number of doctors. But the government is misleading the public by saying that this phenomenon is due to a shortage of doctors and is putting doctors in a negative light.
On Sunday in Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif was voted as Prime Minister for a second term. He ran as head of a shaky coalition that overshadowed followers of jailed opposition leader Imran Khan. Khan's party candidates secured more seats than any other party, but not enough to form a government. Sharif, 72, first served as Prime Minister in 2022, heading a striking similar alliance which hosted Imran Khan, a former cricket star. Sharif got 201 votes by newly sworn-in lawmakers in Pakistan's National Assembly over 3 weeks after widely disputed and allegedly rigged national elections. The Sharif family's Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Party allied with their historic rivals there, as well as the several smaller factions to keep Khan's candidates out. In return, the Pakistan People's Party, or PPP, a dynasty party ruled by the family of slain former Premier Benazir Bhutto, has been promised the office of president for Bhutto's widowed Asif Ali Zardari. On Sunday, on the eve of China's Communist Party annual meeting in Beijing, a spokesman for China's Political Advisory Council said the economy, especially youth employment, was of great concern to party delegates. Thousands of delegates from across the country will convene in Beijing on Monday for the start of the party's yearly conclave, known as the Two Sessions. The meetings come as the world's second-largest economy battles a range of challenges, from a protracted property crisis to flagging domestic consumption and persistently high youth unemployment, which officially stood at around 15% at the end of 2023. China reported an economic growth of 5.2% last year, one of its slowest rates in decades.
The Communist Party of China's Central Committee and the State Council have given priority to promoting employment in economic and social development and have made a series of specific arrangements. Various localities and government departments have taken measures to create a synergy in stabilizing and expanding employment.
In Algeria, the 7th summit of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum concluded on Saturday with the reaffirmation of the member states' absolute sovereign rights over their gas resources. The Algiers Declaration endorsed at the summit condemned unilateral economic restrictions without prior approval of the United Nations Security Council and any extraterritorial application of national laws and regulations against the member countries. The declaration also acknowledged the risks and challenges to the natural gas market arising from the geopolitical and economic situations and stressed the need for sustainable investments and the integrity of critical natural gas infrastructure. The forum is formed of 12 permanent and 7 observer members as of February and collectively holds about 70% of confirmed global gas reserves.
Member countries reiterate their condemnation of all unilateral economic restrictions undertaken without the prior approval of the United Nations Security Council, and any extraterritorial application of national laws and regulations against GECF member countries.
We need to protect all the world's energy infrastructures because they are so important. There are cross-border infrastructures, which we mentioned in the Algerian Declaration, and this is the first time we want to send out a strong message to protect energy facilities.
Burkina Faso Prosecutor's Office launched investigations into the killing of 170 people in a series of attacks in the department of Thio at the end of February. According to a statement issued by the Public Prosecutor's Office, it is still unknown who was responsible for the attacks occurred on February 25th in the villages of Komsilga, Nodin and Soro, located in the department of Thio, as well as the number of people injured or material damage caused by these actions. In this respect, the document stated that its judicial police services had been instructed to open an investigation to clarify these facts. According to various reports, suspicions fall on terrorists who have frequently attacked remote communities and security forces, especially in the northern region. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society demanded the release of 14 of its workers detained for over 3 weeks by Israel's regime. The organization called on the international community to intervene and putting heavy pressure on Israeli authorities to secure the release of its employees, including 7 who are being held inside Al-Amal hospital. The organization described its concern as being mainly due to the fact that after their arrest, no contacts could be established to reveal their health condition or their whereabouts. The Red Crescent has repeatedly reported the attacks launched by Tel Aviv against ambulances, medical centers, and health personnel. Meanwhile, the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Middle East, UNRWA, denounced the systematic Israeli attacks against humanitarian workers and journalists in the Gaza Strip and warned that the largest number of assassinations of these professionals has been registered compared to any other conflict. According to medical sources in Gaza, over 30,400 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli occupation forces since October 7, 2023. In Palestine, dozens of civilians were killed and others injured in recent attacks in Gaza by Israel, which expanded its ground offensive by targeting an area known as Hamad City. According to local media reports, the Israeli war machinery carried out heavy aerial and artillery bombardments this evening at the northern area of Khan Yunis city as part of its advance towards the Hamad towers. According to Tel Aviv regime forces, this is part of a new phase of their military campaign as they began to deepen their advances against the area. Pope Francis called on the nations of the world to promote peace negotiations and demand a stop to the Israeli war against Gaza. The Supreme Pontiff warned that a better world cannot be built through war, nor can peace be achieved, so he called for global disarmament to avoid the suffering of innocent people. The religious leaders said it is a moral duty to hand over arms and decrease funding for military programs as hundreds are affected by conflicts worldwide. Pope Francis insisted on world leaders to promote peace negotiations in Palestine, the exchange of prisoners, and the arrival of humanitarian aid to those most affected by the Israeli siege.
Stop. Encourage the continuation of negotiations for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and throughout the region, so that the hostages may be freed immediately and return to their anxiously waiting loved ones, and the civilian population can have safe access to urgently needed humanitarian aid.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.